Welcome to Labcorp Perspectives Oncology, where we connect on cancer, science, and patient care. I'm your host, Dr. Rebecca Previs, and I'm the Senior Director of Medical Affairs here at Labcorp. Today's episode is a really special one. We're diving into the findings from Labcorp's new report, The Pulse of the Oncologist, which is a national survey capturing what oncologists all across the United States are thinking, feeling, and experiencing in real time. And I am so thrilled to be joined by someone whose work sits right at the intersection of clinical care, diagnostics, and also the future of oncology, Dr. Brian Caveney, who's Labcorp's Chief Medical and Scientific Officer. Brian, thank you and welcome. We're so thrilled that you're here today.
So great to be with you, Dr. Previs. I'm really looking forward to our conversation to talk about what the oncologists of America tell us they want.
Awesome. And you can always call me Becca. Everyone does.
Thanks, Becca.
I want to start with you and really try to understand the why behind all of this. Oncology is changing so fast. Why did LabCorp decide to undertake a survey like this, and what were we hoping to understand?
Well, we've been participating in oncology for a very long time. And as you said, we know it's changing in so many different ways, both the places that people are practicing, the types of patients they're seeing, and certainly the science has just exploded in terms of diagnostics as well as treatment pathways. We just wanted to make sure we're doing what our clients need, what oncologists want, what patients deserve. And what better way than to ask the actual oncologist taking care of cancer patients and just make sure that they've got all the tools they need to do the best job they can taking care of their patients.
Awesome. And the survey included 152 oncologists from all across academic, community, health systems, as well as integrated systems. And I know that as clinicians and oncologists, we often feel that pressure, but rarely actually get asked systematically what would actually help make your job a little easier. I think oftentimes oncologists are so focused on the patient and their family that oftentimes we miss kind of that 10,000 foot view. And I think this report does a really nice job to surface those day-to-day realities that really drive home those clear data and make them meaningful. So I want to jump into the results and spend our time there. And that first major theme that came up for me was time, perhaps our most important resource. According to the report, 89% of oncologists expect that care is going to get more complex. And 60% of oncologists say that turnaround time with regard to diagnostic tests is a top barrier. Now, I'm going to guess that this data is going to resonate with all of our listeners. Every extra day that you spend waiting for that result feels like that patient has to wait on another day for a treatment plan. What was your reaction when you saw those numbers?
With the time numbers as well as everything else in this really robust report, maybe one of the good news is there were no real surprises in it. It's sort of what we expected oncologists to think. The downside is we can't snap our fingers and magically make all of the potential challenges and barriers to really great cancer care go away. No surprise whatsoever that time is of the essence. Of course, every cancer patient and their families waiting on the results of their PET scan or of their biopsy or of their genetic test or of anything else is of utmost concern. And the really busy staff in oncology clinics around the world are the ones taking those phone calls saying, are my results back? Is my prescription ready? When am I scheduled for my next thing? So it is no surprise whatsoever that it's really important that we do the best job we can to reduce the pre-analytic, analytic, and post-analytic components of ordering the right test, performing the test as quick as reasonably possible while delivering top quality, and then figuring out how to get the interpretive report back into the right hands so that they can figure out what's the next best clinical action to take for their patient.
I think that's spot on. And I know that we all feel this burden that labs like ours have such a responsibility to optimize those logistics, turnaround time, workflows to reduce that friction that, patients and providers feel. And of course, there's this emotional nuance here as well. It's not just days lost, it's that mental load that, patients and clinicians feel in that waiting game. So, when you think, Brian, about Labcorp as a partner to oncologists, what do you think are the most impactful levers that we can pull meaningfully to improve turnaround time and reduce some of this friction in the next few years?
Becca, that's a great question. I think there are a lot of different things that we can do, from making sure things as simple as how we name our tests so it's easy to remember, intuitive, and connected to the clinical question they're trying to answer, trying to automate every step of the process for making it easy to order, easy to collect the specimen, easy to get it to the laboratory where it's going to go. And then, of course, automating whatever workflows that we can as part of the analytic process, doing our quality review checks as timely as possible, making sure all the equipment is calibrated, ready to go. We've got the shift fully staffed so that we can do the things that we can do to chip away at all the different components of getting a good expected turnaround time for our clients that are ordering these tests from us. And then getting readable, understandable, interpretable result reports back electronically into the electronic medical records so all the clinicians can get access to it. And as you know now, patients have access to most of their results in real time at the same time that their clinicians do. So we want to get those back as quickly as possible so the clinical team can answer questions and again figure out what is the next best action to do.
And you mentioned EMR. I think the electronic medical health record has made healthcare much more accessible, but introduces this digital friction barrier. And in the survey, 73% of oncologists are say that they need these better digital or IT interfaces. And almost three quarters want real time sample tracking. Now, I know a lot of my oncology colleagues are going to really identify with this one. Ordering tests shouldn't be the hardest part of that patient encounter, but sometimes it can actually feel like it is. What was also surprising to you in the digital trends portion of this survey?
You're exactly right. As we both know from years in the clinic, you spend almost all of your time in the clinical workflow logged into your electronic medical record, and you want everything to be easily accessible. And it's from as simple as if I have to search for a test or any other type of a procedure or drug or anything else, is it intuitive? Is it easy to find the search bar? Does it present the results in sort of like the most likely descending order so that I can click to it more quickly? Something that almost sounds as silly as if you could get something from 7 clicks down to 4 clicks, that would be amazing, multiplied over all the patients you see all the days, all the time, and reduce the likelihood of error. So there are just so many different ways that we need to have clinical experts sitting with the technical experts, thinking through how real clinicians in real busy days, in real busy clinics, actually go through their day and try to engineer out all the different ways you can make errors and try to make it super easy for them to get the right test to answer the right clinical question for that patient sitting in front of them.
I think you make a great point, Brian. When ordering is seamless, you don't even have to think about it, right? You point, you click, hopefully it's four instead of seven, and voila. But when it's not seamless, that's when it really becomes the barrier. What do you think labs like ours, Brian, should be prioritizing to reduce this digital friction? What does good look like to us?
I think partnering with the health systems, with the oncology clinics, making sure we understand what they need. Frankly, we're in a good enough position where we are interfaced with almost every EMR that exists out there, but they change all the time. They get upgraded, they move information to the cloud. We have to constantly have our IT teams understand what changes are happening so that those interfaces are seamless. Data gets into the right structured field where it's intended to go as soon as possible so that that clinician who comes into the clinic tomorrow morning logs onto their EMR again and all the right information is there as soon as possible so they can make a good decision.
And I think you're speaking the language of oncologists, Brian. If you can track a mail package more easily than a patient's genomics results, that's certainly an opportunity, and something that I know our oncologists are thinking about often. Now, you mentioned reporting a little bit earlier, so I want to touch on that a bit because I think this one really hit home for me as well. The report found that 22% of oncologists find lab reports unclear, and many actually question the specificity of that genomic data. I think you'll agree clarity isn't just a nice to have. Decisions really impact these patients' lives, and these reports depend on it. What do you think is really driving this need for clearer reporting in the clinical setting?
I think so many labs, including ours, frankly, try to get as much information as possible in there. They want to have every variant, every VUS. They want to have lots of references and link outs to clinical guidelines or clinical trials. It's all amazing, but it needs to be contextualized because sometimes now some of these reports can get 10, 20, 30 pages long. And again, a busy clinician has to know how to get to the very most important information. They also, as you and I know well, they don't want to miss something important. So they've got to figure out what's the trade off of how much time to invest in going through a report. And we want to try to surface the most important information at the top, make it searchable for other things down the road, but help them not miss something important and get to the right information wherever possible.
Yeah, and to your point, I think clinically, there's a big difference between a report that just lists variants without context or any additional information, because we know that those results impact next steps for patients.
You're right. Oncology care is so high stakes. It's so critical. There's no room for error. And if 22% of oncologists don't feel like they can clearly understand all the aspects of the reports, then we all in the whole industry have a lot of work to do because we don't want the risk of the wrong dose, the wrong medication, the wrong thing to take place because we just all have to work on making that better and getting that number down to a much, much smaller one. And as I mentioned earlier, if 22% of oncologists struggle with interpreting it, imagine what happens when patients log into their Epic MyChart or their other patient portal account, download it, put it into Chat GPT, and maybe have some confusion of those very big words that are hard to understand and hard to interpret out of the context of all the other information in there. So we all need to get better and better at making these really precise and understandable and clear for all involved down the road.
I think you're exactly right. This way we report has the potential to change everything, and missing something is my biggest fear as an oncologist, right? Especially if that patient has a targetable, actionable biomarker. Now, let's talk about our world at Labcorp. But are there specific investments or innovations that you see that will really move the needle in the field on this interpretive clarity?
So much, Becca. I mean, as you know well, the science is exploding in this space, and we're getting better and better at a precise diagnosis of the cancer. But then, if you move forward in treatment, post-operatively or post-treatment, more and more MRD or molecular residual disease assays are coming to market that are very precise for each individual subtype of cancer, highly validated to be able to demonstrate remission or recurrence. That is very exciting. And then sometimes you even move further upstream and think about all of the different MCED tests coming to cancer, the multi cancer early detection tests to identify the likelihood of cancer so we can hopefully get some shift down the road and identify and diagnose cancers in earlier stages rather than later stages. So many other innovations like digital pathology, using AI algorithms to improve digital pathology. The digital IHC stains are just amazing in identifying some abnormal morphology and other potential genetic markers on biopsy slides, and just so many other innovations coming to the market that it's really difficult for oncologists and their staff to stay on top of. That's why we have to do an even better job in the future of getting all of that information into clinical decision support tools to make it easier for them to collate all the information coming from different sources and the latest PET scan results and the latest genetic assay coming in so that they have it all available uh, at top of mind on their EMR screen so that they can figure out how to counsel their patient and do a great job of taking care of them.
Now, you brought up molecular residual disease, which I will say is something we think about so much now. And as the results from the survey came out, this actually emerged as the number one technology with the potential to impact patient care. both across community and academic oncologists in the field. We're hearing from people who use our test. What do you have as an option in this MRD space? Um, Tell me, why do you think MRD resonated so strongly with our oncologists?
I think it just gives oncologists a great tool to make sure that they're following their patient as well as they can. And frankly, it also is really helpful to counsel your patient that we have this ability to follow you in a timely fashion so that even if something is happening, even if your cancer is coming back, we have a plan in place to be able to test you again in a very simple, non invasive way and give you some information so that you know that we're following you, we're keeping an eye on you. We're going to do the best we can to stay on top of this thing and hopefully keep you in remission as long as we can.
Yeah, I think oncologists and patients alike and their families all are craving these tools that are going to give more certainty, especially when, as you pointed out, imaging and our historical biomarkers have really fallen short in a lot of ways. But, this is a very overwhelming space and we're covering a lot of different technologies. So I do want to bring us to our last theme, and that's innovation. And really, innovation only matters if all patients can access it. The report highlighted that 52% of oncologists cite insurance coverage as a major barrier, which with costs very close behind that as another barrier. And I think for me and probably our oncologists that are listening out there, we feel this really deeply. Tell me what you think about this trend.
You and I both practiced at one of the institutions that did some of the earliest work on financial toxicity in cancer patients in particular, even if they are insured, given the fact that many people now have high deductible health plans with large patient out of pocket cost shares and other things beyond just your healthcare bills that take place when you're dealing with cancer treatment, including sometimes the inability to work for a paycheck. So there's just there are larger social and societal factors at play here, but indeed, doctors need to know what their patients are dealing with in terms of their insurance. At Labcorp, we try very hard to be in network with every health plan available to at least give some more clarity. We try to develop some patient out of pocket cost transparency tools to give both the doctor and the patient some information about the likelihood of a test being covered. We try to get good clinical information from the oncologist's office so that we can try to be very thorough and robust in the prior authorizations that we send in, and again, trying to make sure that we're getting appropriate, necessary clinical testing covered under the patient's insurance to try to relieve some of that burden where we can. But we do not have universal great access to diagnostics or therapeutics, as you know, or healthcare coverage in general. And we all need to do the best we can to work with the patient in front of us, understand the situation they're in, and give them the best advice we can how they can navigate the system to get the care they need and relieve the financial pressure on their wallet the best they can.
Yes, I know that emotional burden on patients and their clinicians is just so significant, especially with regard to financial toxicity. We very much want to do the right tests, as you pointed out, but of course, never wanting to cause a patient or their family any financial harm. You mentioned that LabCorp is really playing a central role in reducing this burden for both providers and patients. I think any other thoughts about how we can kind of contribute to this in a meaningful way?
Well, for many years, we've had a sort of a LabCorp patient assistance program to try to help offset some of those costs. We work very hard with some of our clientele, whether they be health systems or community oncology clinics, to try to identify and help patients enroll in clinical trials, if that could be helpful and relieve the burden and get them exposed to some of the great cutting edge science. We work very closely with so many of the payers of the country to try to advocate for our patients and for access and participate in clinical registries where possible, other types of early access programs, just a variety of ways as we're bringing new innovations to the market to try to get them in the hands of oncologists so they can order them on their patients where appropriate.
Brian, this has been such an insightful conversation. I just want to sincerely thank you for joining us. And, I really appreciated how the Pulse of the Oncologist survey captured both the complexity as well as the humanity of oncology. It's tough to hold both. The science, the workflows, the digital challenges, and of course the emotional weight of being a patient who's facing a cancer diagnosis. Thank you again for joining us and helping us translate all these findings for your expertise. Any final thoughts or wisdom you want to share?
Well, Becca, thank you for your advocacy in this space. You're such a great voice for the patient and for the oncologist out there. Thank you to the 152 oncologists that took the time to give us this really important feedback. We know that you represent the views of thousands of your colleagues, and we take it very seriously. And we and other labs need to address your concerns and make sure we're chipping away at those and getting better and better along the way. And what, Becca, while you and I talked about a variety of challenges and barriers, boy, I couldn't be any more bullish about the future of oncology care. Something like 40% of the pipeline of all biotech and drug companies are oncology therapies, from cellular therapies, genetic therapies, small molecule, large molecule, ADCs, you name it. There are so many things coming down the pipe. There are so many oncology assays, both in our R&D group as well as tons of our industry colleagues and academic labs around the world. I think in 5 or 10 years, cancer care is going to be completely different, massively better, and just incredible in terms of the outcomes that oncologists will be able to deliver. So keep fighting the good fight, keep focusing on innovation, keep figuring out how we can bring the best innovations to our patients, and hopefully we'll have an even more positive conversation in a couple of years the next time we do the pulse of the oncology survey.
I can't wait for that. You're definitely going to be recruited to join us again. So, thank you again for all of your time. And thank you to our listeners. You can download the full Pulse of the Oncologist survey at our website, labcorp.com. And I just want to thank you again, Brian, and to our listeners for spending time with us on Labcorp Perspectives Oncology. We'll see you next time.